Good afternoon. Welcome. Let's give everyone a minute and then we'll get started. Let's just kick it off and then we'll see whoever else drops in. Welcome to the last session of this webinar deep dive series. This is the one around routing and extensibility. We're going to see a little bit of overlap on how we can extend it into Salesforce and ServiceNow, for example. And then we're going to take a little bit of a deep dive into the unified routing, the voice routing, preferred agent routing, sentiment routing, etc., and for voice and for messaging. So what we're going to do is we're going to get it all up. So we're going to do it live. I got a few slides that I also want to show you guys. Feel free to interrupt me. Feel free to ask questions. It is meant to be interactive as possible. So yeah, let's go. Starting off with unified routing. Unified routing has been around now, I think, for a few years. There's still basic routing and unified routing. So if you come across those terms, those are two different things. Unified routing is the more advanced, sort of the next evolvement of routing within the Dynamics platform. And what it basically is that if we take a look at that journey that we discussed earlier in the previous settings, where a customer comes in, he goes to self-service, we go to some classification, and then we distribute it to the right agents. This whole process, this is what we mean by normal routing. And unified routing is the thing that adds and enriches all of these steps with all sorts of intelligence. Meaning that through self-service, we can enrich the routing by basically extracting the language that a customer is speaking in, or the sentiment that a customer has. Based on intelligence classification, we can say, hey, there's an AI model that picks it up and says, well, this user is probably calling about a product malfunction. And then it goes to that specific product support group, or anything else. Could be a premium customer with a specific SLA that you want to adhere to. Right? So all of these metrics, all of these monitoring, all of that data points, combined with skill levels on the side of the agents and skills that we want to put on there, that is all available through that unified routing, and you can make use of that through workflow classifications and basically route it to the right agent. In Dynamics, as I said, there's basic routing and unified routing. Basic routing is the thing that we use for emails and for cases, right? If you turn on unified routing for cases or emails, then there's a few things that are going to happen. You can't turn it back, right? So once you go unified routing, you can't turn it off again. If you want to route chat or voice, you will have to use unified routing, right? There's no other way. There's no basic routing for chat or for voice. If you have a lot of basic queues and you turn on unified routing, all of your basic queues will stop working until you provide them with new intake rules. So it's not that you can't use them together or next to each other. So if you have cases, if you have chats, you want to use chats, unified routing for chats and basic routing for cases, Mind that you will have to define new intake rules. And I'm saying this as a large disclaimer because this is what goes wrong most of the time when we do an upgrade to unified routing. Basic routing is basically unlimited. Unified routing has a user allotment per a number of messages that they're eligible to use, pooled on a tenant level, depending on how many license users you have, right? If you run out of them, then you will have to buy add-on packs for unified routing. To be fair, most of the time when we roll this out, it's a little bit of a larger organization. I have never seen a organization that I work for personally that ran out of those credits. So mind that is not something that Microsoft uses to upsell you stuff. I mean, it's basically more of a fair use thing. If you have millions and millions of things that you want to route through it, then obviously you have to get those add-on packs, right? So unified routing difference. So what it tries to do, if you use unified routing, and that is really cool, I think it's really cool, is that it works omni-channel, meaning that if you have a specific thing, a chat coming in, and you want to upgrade that to a voice chat or you want to upgrade it to a video chat, you can use that within your routing principles, right? Within your routing workstream. So basically, you elevate that to a multi-channel experience for your customers. Right? It goes beyond that hardwired rule system where we say if this, then that. If this is the case, then go to that queue or go to that agent. Unified routing is extensible. That means that I can extend it with AI models to extract and enrich that. I can build Azure AI models to get sentiment out of it if I want to use anything different that is already there out of the box, right? So you can extend those models and those data points as much as you want, meaning that if we route it to the right agent at the right time, we get our first time resolution rate right up. We get our sales priorities in order. We get the best available agent for the specific task to the customer the fastest, meaning that also on this side, and obviously this is a little bit of a marketing thing, also on that side, we're trying to close deals faster, right? So this not only works for support, or for service, it also works for sales, obviously. That goes to the same unified routing. So if we take a look at what goes where, as I already said, if I look at the customer, we support channel switches. We have personalized greetings and messages that are on the queue. Unified routing supports queue position notifications. That is all part of that routing experience. How much time is the average wait? Um, can you be called back if it's too long, right? I personally love that. If it's too long, I can just say I'm going to hang up without losing my position in the queue and get a call back at the moment it's my turn. On the self-service side, we see a lot of augmenting context for that routing. So as I said, for example, the IVR that we talked about last week, where I say I want to press one for sales or for billing, I can augment context for that routing. So I can take that into my work stream and route it to the right agents or the right department. Same with the classification, where there's sentiment, I can identify skills that might be needed. For example, the language that a customer is speaking, right? And match that to an agent that speaks the same language. And then we got work prioritization. So even if it comes in, there's also a prioritization, which means that, for example, if I have premium members or VIP members, I can prioritize them and get them get them to an agent faster than my regular users, right? So also that is part of that unified routing experience. There's also something that is called preferred agents for repeated customers. So if you have a VIP connection, if you have, for example, you're an investment firm with a specific um, agent for a specific VIP member that handles their portfolio, you can tie them together so it will always try to find that specific preferred agent. Naturally, there's also integration with the operating hours, the schedules of the agents, the operating hours of the work stream, the operating hours of the business, holidays, that is all in there as well, alongside the real-time presence management of the agent. So if an agent is already talking to someone else, logically, you don't want them to get next calls in. That is different with email for cases, but obviously with voice and with chats that require a somewhat direct response, you don't want to add multiple to it, right? So let's dive into, well, before we do that, before we dive into that voice thing, let's quickly go over the extensibility with some connectors. As I said, there's a bunch of connectors that you can actually use. Microsoft developed this to be very extensible. That means not only in that unified routing we can extend in, and I'm going to show you that in a bit, we also can extend the whole process, the whole architecture, the whole, out of the box connectors for contact center into other CRM systems. Microsoft built that right into it. So it all runs on Dataverse, right? Dataverse is a data layer. That is where my contact details live. That is where the journey lives. That is where the agent profiles live. Right? Every piece of data is in that Dataverse for unified routing to make use of that. That means that if we use Salesforce or ServiceNow or SAP or Zendesk or whatever other system, that we need to get that data from here into Dataverse before we can actually do something with it through unified routing, right? And that seems like we're copying data. That is absolutely true, right? So talking about CRM integratability, we now have an out-of-the-box connector for Salesforce and ServiceNow, Zendesk, and other third-party CRMs are now actively developing their own connectors as well. So Microsoft decided to connect it to Salesforce. So let's take a quick look at how that works and what the steps are. So if you come into customer service admin center or the contact center admin center, right? It's the same. It's the same thing with our case management. You'll find that CRM connection wizard right there. And under workspaces, there is a data synchronization from external CRMs. So this is what it tries to trigger. You have to set up that connection first to synchronize that data. As I said, now there's one instance, one type, which is Salesforce. If you put your new connectors in there, you'll have multiple things to choose from. Out of the box, it's just Salesforce for now. Where you log in, you connect it through that wizard, and then at some point you'll get that question. Well, you go through the setup, the permissions. This is just the next experience. You get to this specific page where you can select the tables to sync. And as I said, you need to sync it up because otherwise unified routing doesn't know where to get that data or where to find. It can't really dive into Salesforce by itself. It can only talk to Dataverse, right? So it is a live sync, meaning that once you do the mapping, where you map specific columns in Salesforce to the columns in Dataverse, you only have to do that once, obviously. It is already a pre-filled mapping when you choose Salesforce. If you choose anything else, then logically you'll have to try and map that yourself. After you go through all of this, you will see that it's connected successfully. and then it will turn from inactive to active if you activate it by the button, and then data will be synced live, right? That means that obviously there's an initial sync that takes a little bit, and after the initial sync, it will just update things when they are updated on either end. So it's a bi-directional sync, right? So if someone edits something within Dataverse through the Dynamics interface, you will see that happening and you will see that syncing up on the Salesforce side and the other way around. It's pretty fast. It takes just under a few seconds before it to sync up, right? So it is pretty cool to see how they integrated that. Obviously, there's metrics, there's monitoring on there, so you can all see that. I got a little demo, but that I'm not going to show you that now. That is too long. But if you're interested, I have a demo to show you that in video. Yeah, let's connect to. Oh, there we go. In the slide deck, there's a few links to all of the other third-party CRM systems that we can connect as well. And this is all on that data side. All right, we're going to jump into the extensibility on the AI modeling and skill modeling and extensibility on that in just a few seconds. Perfect. So let's go and check out the voice channel routing because that's what we're here for. So if we take a look at voice routing, let's picture something like this. I got a premium customer called Nancy, and Nancy is a premium customer. She is preferring the language that is English, and once classified, it needs to go to the right priority queue, matched with an agent that has the skill English and can answer credit card related queries, right? Which is Sarah. The way we set this up is by doing the following. So we're going to set up a channel, we're going to set up a queue, and then we're going to set up a workflow, and we're going to piece all of that stuff together. So now I'm going to step out of the slides and get to the actual customer service admin screen again, which is this. This is my demo environment. And let's set it up. So before you set up anything, voice related, as I said last week, you have to make sure that you activated the channels, the voice channel in this case, and then you can set up a new voice channel here, right? So the first one is just a propagation voice channel capability, and this is where we can actually create a voice channel. So let's create one. Obviously, this is something that you don't do every day. This is something that you do when you set up the whole system up. But let's say I got my PowerPay Premium banking. So that is my voice channel for VIP customers. It is the type voice because I'm coming from voice. And then it asks, do you want to create a new work stream to go with that? Yes, I do. I want to do that. Let's call it the same thing, premium banking. Obviously, I should have called the other one voice banking or something like that. But the default work distribution mode is push. You can change that later. And there's always going to be a fallback queue. So if it doesn't fall into any classification or into any routing rules, it will fall back to this specific one. That defaults to the default voice queue. That is a queue that all users are automatically part of, right? So all agents with voice capabilities will always be part of that default voice queue. So that is an overflow. If you do not want the default one, obviously you can use any other, but let's leave it at default. When you're here, it will ask you, hey, what phone number do you want to use for that? If you do not have any phone numbers to begin with, it will ask you to do that first before you can even go through this setup, right? I got a toll-free trial number that I could use. You can always get one through Microsoft that will be provisioned into your Azure Communication Service instance. Mind that the cost per number are really different per country. right? So depending on where you have your customers, you might want to get a local number for them there. Doesn't need to be a toll-free number. There's also geographical numbers. If you choose geographical numbers in a lot of countries, you will also need to have to provide paperwork. So, for example, if I want to have a geographical number in the Netherlands, then I have to prove that I have a business there, a Chamber of Commerce stuff that I have to send in, my ID I have to send in, that sort of stuff. I need to provide verification for them to actually give out that number. United States is by far the easiest. There's no verification whatsoever. If you want to test it out, I would say just pick a United States number. That works really well. But once you do that, you will have to provide a primary language for that voice setup. Let's take English. There's a bunch of things that I can also do. Voice of hold music, wait music. I can choose the voice that is being used. And I can pick if I want to have a post-call survey. Well, I don't. Let's just save and close. There we go. Next. Do we also want to notify the customer of a position in the queue? And this is, as I said, all part of that unified routing. Do I want to use channel operating hours? If I do not, it will be active 24/7. Well, let's leave it at that for now. Show transcript by default. Let's do that. And do I want to enable custom automated messages? So there's a bunch of messages in there, also part of that unified routing, where I can say, I don't want to have the standard message. I want to say, if, for example, for this one, I want it to be read out as a different message. And you can input this as text, and it will be spoken by the voice that you picked in the previous step, right? Do I want to enable my agents to transfer or consult? Well, let's do that. Then create a channel. So now we got a channel. So that means we got a work stream and we got a channel. So voice can come in. There's a work stream that we created as part of this setup. Let's jump into that after this is done. Takes just a few seconds. And then we can go and configure that. So on the work stream is basically that collection of all the settings to route and assign work items, right? So that is the holder, the package of it all. That work stream is always associated to that channel. And in this case, this is the voice, right? So in this case, I want to open the work stream. Oh, it opens up a new window, well, that's fine. There we go. Perfect. And what we said in the example is that we wanted to route to a specific set where Sarah is my best agent is part of. So in this case, before we do anything, I also want to create that queue, right? The queue is just basically a collection of agents that will be accepting work that comes in. So in this case, as I said, there's basic queues and advanced queues. The advanced queues is the one that we use for unified routing. So let's make one. And as I already said, there's a default one. This is where everyone is a part of. And this is one I created myself later on, but let's create a new one saying that this will be premium banking, which is a voice queue. And I can make that my first priority. Right. So if there's a queue priority, if there's a match to multiple queues, then it will try to find the highest in priority. Right. So in this case, basically, we have a queue. I need to make agents part of this queue. Right. So I need to add users to it. So in this case, I'll add myself and I add Sarah, which is agent one in this example, to that queue. Meaning that if work flows in to this specific queue, these agents will be the ones that are able to pick it up. If they are not there, and there's nothing on the overflow handling, the message will be stuck, right? Obviously, we can create that fallback, and that is where that default the default voice queue comes in. So now that we got that premium banking queue, let's go back to that work stream. So we got the work stream, that is that collection of things. Here you can see that we have one phone number connected to it. Mind that I can add different voice channels all under the same work stream with different behaviors in different languages, right? But they share the routing rules and classification, etc. Then, but now let's not make it too complex. Let's take a look at the word classification. So based on this, every work stream has classification and routes to queue, meaning that I want to enrich this based on the things that I extract from my call. For example, is this a premium user? Is this an English speaking user? Stuff like that. That is what I want to use in my classification. And then I also want to route it to a specific queue. Right. So in this case, let's create a rule set. And again, this is the enrichment. This is not yet the routing. This is the enrichment part where I can say, well, let's call it English language. That's fine. You can see that I can create a logical rule set here to classify it, or I can also choose a machine learning model, right? So extensibility wise, this is where you would pick your own Azure AI model to actually provide you with those classifications. Now, for now, I'm just going to pick up the logical rule set. No. Perfect. Now I got the rule set, and now I can create the actual rules to do this. So let's say I got English. Then I can change, I can add the conditions. I can say, well, I want to add a row. I get all of the fields, trying to list all the fields right now that I can use. For example, the customer language, right? I can say, well, if the language is in this case English, and mind that you don't have to find out. You can set this, for example, through the IVR or through the chatbot. You can set that as a context record on a specific language. If you do not do that, Dynamics will find out the language based on previous interactions or based on the conversation that it had with the bot. So even if you don't necessarily set it yourself, it will still try and find out that language for you. Right. So what it does now, it says, well, if the customer language equals English, I don't want to do anything else. I want that to go to a skill. I want to find an agent within my pool of agents that have English as a skill. And I'll show you how to set up those skills in just a bit. I can also choose a proficiency. I chose to have 5 different kinds of proficiency levels. If I want to have a minimum level, I can say, well, I want English to be at least very good, right? This is optional, minds that you do not have to do that, right? So now I set the skill to English. Again, you can make multiple rules. So I can also say if this is a user that is from the premium segment, I want to have it route to a skill X or legal matters or billing or something like that. Right. So back to banking, where I now have enriched my context of my conversation coming in with a specific skill. I want to use that to route it to a specific queue. Right. So not based on English. I just want this because it comes in through my premium banking number. I want this to be routed to my premium banking queue. So I want to create a routing rule set. Let me just give it this as a title. Oh, And I want to say, well, I want this to be premium banking. I can add conditions, right? So this is, for example, if that I said I want it to be if the customer, if the field of a specific customer that comes in, let's say, not from the record itself, but I can also say I want to add a related entity. So the contact, right? I can say if the contact is, for example, I can pick any field. Say there's a customer size or there's a SLA level. I can just pick any field on that customer and set it to that specific thing. I do not have to use conditions. I can also just say I want to route it to, in this case, my premium banking queue. Right? And there's no condition defined. These are also in order, right? So mind that you can add multiple rules. That works just fine. So now I routed everything. I enriched it. I'm routing it to this specific thing. And now there's a fallback queue, which is here. Mind that for that fallback queue, the fallback queue, none of the rules of operating hours or anything else that is supposed to be with default with a queue, like operating hours or agents or anything like it, will be all of that will be disregarded. So this is literally, if nothing else works, I'm gonna put it in here and I will disregard everything else. So if none of the users, none of your agents is available for this queue, your customer will be in limbo, right? He will be delivered to that queue, but none of the routing rules will work. None of the overflow rules will work on the fallback, right? So please do mind that. If you're looking for setting up overflow, etc., you have to do that on the normal queues because all of the things that you put into the fallback queue will be disregarded. Perfect. So we got that work distribution mode, we got the contacts, we got all of that, and this should work, right? This is just if I call in now, it should be delivered to that specific queue, and I can try because I added myself. So let me see if I can actually refresh and see if it comes in. Don't have to get my phone up. There we go. Plus 1, 8, 3, 3, 2, 8, 5, 6, 0. Let's try it out. Well, my number is not yet working. Again, this takes 15-ish minutes, so I'll try it in just a few minutes and then see that it comes in. Mind again, all of the things that you do in contact center can take up to 15 minutes. On the roadmap is to make it near real time, but that is not yet the case, unfortunately. So this is a basic way of routing stuff, right? Basic classifications. Let's see how we can find that. So now it comes into that premium banking thing. There's multiple agents in there. Let's see how we distribute that then. So go back to the queues. We got that premium banking thing where me and agent one is both a part of. The assignment method is now least active. If you choose to create an assignment method, you can say, well, I want to assign it to a round robin, or I want to assign it to someone with the most capacity, right? So the most capacity as in someone who is the most free, that has the most active things at the same time. Least active is just fine for most things, but mind that you can indeed change that. You can also set the operating hours on this. And again, be aware that if you use this queue as a fallback queue, this will all be disregarded, right? There's no operating hours on a fallback queue. So if it comes in, we now enrich that whole conversation to say, well, there's a skill that I want you to provide and that I want you to match in that agent pool. In these agents, I want you to match it to the one that has the best match. On this side, you'll find routing. Right? There's a bunch of things that we can do. We have skill-based routing, we got record routing, we got preferred agent routing, we got skill finders, sentiment-based routing, and effort-based routing. All things that we can route on with that unified routing engine. So all of this starts, if we want to match it on English, with setting up a few skills. That is what we do through user management. So user management, you can manage the skills. Just put a few in. If I create one, I can set up, for example, I want to add Spanish to it. I can set that as a skill. Save. I can immediately add users to it, but I really hate this specific interface, so I normally don't use it like that. But you can also use certifications, right? So instead of skills, you can also say, I want people to have this specific certification. But once you set up the skills, there's also a proficiency scale, right? So the proficiency scale on this, as I said, there's now just 1 to 5. I can have different scales for different skills, so I can match those together. So if you want to go that far, that is also an option. If you want to have and assign agents a specific skill, this is where you want to go, not the interface that I just showed you on the skill itself. This is where you want to use that in bulk. So the enhanced user management, that's where you go into. And then I can say, well, agent 1 and agent 2 and the supervisor, they all speak Spanish. So let's update these user attributes. I can update them to be part of a skill, to be part of a queue, to have a skill, or to be part of a capacity profile. In this case, we're going to update the skill. So from here, I can say, well, Spanish, they all have a very good level in Spanish, right? And that's where I save it. So this is all getting used by that unified routing engine to pick the most appropriate agent, right? When you do skill matching, you can say, I want that skill to match perfectly, or I want it to match as best as I can, right? So this is the rating. So mind that if you use a skill-based routing, there's an option to say, I want it to match exact, or I want it to fall back to another agent if I can't find an exact match, right? Obviously, when I have a specific language, it is hard to fall back to something else, right? Or you can transfer it to English, I would guess. But mind that for some things, there's no fallback. So you want to have exact matching. So this is the skill-based routing in a nutshell. This is the normal routing in a nutshell. This is where we enrich things. Let's also take a look at the overflow handling. So if someone comes in and everyone is busy, there's no agent available, we wanted to look at overflow handling conditions, right? So in this case, Sarah, she's already on a call or she's not available, and we wanted to be handled by someone else in this case, and we do. Overflow handling is on the queue level. So if I take this queue, the premium banking queue, there is a overflow handling here, right? In this case, I want to say I want to have, before my work items are actually queued, I want to say if my average waiting time is, in this case, half a minute, then I want to have the user to receive a callback. or I want to end it entirely, or I want to transfer it, or I want them to leave a voice, right? So these are your options right now. Mind that is um, this is a pre-routed overflow handle, right? So the work items are not yet in the queue, right? So these conditions will be tested before it actually is being put in the queue. That means that this is a really, well, I would say not that great of a metric, meaning that if we have um, an average waiting time of 0 because there's no one in the queue, but I also have no agents that are active, right? I will have an average waiting time of 0, so it will never hit, right? I can't set this to 0 just yet. So there's a few things that Microsoft is working on, and one of those things is this one. So I don't know if you do not have this one. I'm in the preview program. I got a few more options. Mind that this is coming your way. There is a after work items are queued condition there, which says I can have the waiting time in the queue exceeds, for example, 1 minute, and then I can do something similar, right? These options will be extended. That is not yet the case. There's now just one option, but I can do that. So I can transfer it to a different queue. I can also transfer it to an external number. For example, if you have an offsite call center that handles overflow, that is the thing that you use. I can also have voicemail, which is really great. The agents can listen to the voicemails in the morning and call them back if needed. This is exceptionally handy if it's after hours, for example, right? For municipalities, we use this frequently. So all in all, pretty cool. So what about, let's go to some of the messaging channel routing. Right, the messaging channel routing is basically, well, it's basically the same thing as we had here at voice routing, because unified routing works for everything. It works for, I have the word stream, chat, word stream. It has the same thing. It has the rule sets. It has the queues. It's the same logical decision rule set. What we want to do most of the time with chat or with more of a VIP members, I would say, I could say, hey, let's do some preferred agent routing with that, right? So preferred agent routing is not the same as repeated customer routing, right? So repeated customer routing is a basic behavior from Dynamics, meaning that if the agents are available and all of the skills match equally, then it will try to match you to the agent that you spoke to last, right? That is the default behavior, meaning that you don't have to explain yourself all over again if the connection gets severed. There is also something that is called preferred agent routing, and that is something different. The preferred agent routing, as I said, that is more of a account manager kind of routing, meaning that I can set up to 3 different preferred agents per contact, right? So it's not unlimited, it's up to 3. So in this case, if Corey the client calls, right, I want only agent 2 or supervisor 1 to be able to answer those calls, or I want them to be picked first, right? I can say I wanted to, in this case, match it to this next to these agents, and if it can't be routed to them, then pick the next best one. Or I can say, nope, I don't want that, it's just these 2. So regardless of anything that is set into the work stream as classification rules and routing rules, preferred agent routing always takes preference, right? So this is always first choice. It goes through this preferred agent routing. If it's there, it will skip all of that. It will just go to those preferred agents, right? This is actually pretty cool. I mean, this is a horrendous job to set up because you have to do it for every specific contact that you have. But if you have really high value clients, this is an amazing thing, right? You don't have to use all of those intricate routing rules. I can just say, if this one calls, I want it to be escalated to my VIP members immediately, right? Or I wanted to skip all of the normal agents and go directly to the portal. Pretty nifty. Um, on the work stream, on the routing rules, there's also a thing that I wanted to show you chat-wise. One of the user features that you have on a chat work stream is that you can also do calling options. So I can let the agent switch to voice or video calling during that chat session. I can also say I want them to enable screen sharing or co-browsing. Mind that this is a third-party provider, right? So I have to hook up a third-party system to do that. But this is pretty nifty. This all goes through Teams. You can use your routing rules and your context to say, I want this call to automatically be escalated. So if you have a chat, I can say, I want it to, if you route it to this specific agent or this specific department, I want it to be elevated to a voice call, right? So that is pretty cool as well. Well, at least I think it's cool. Perfect. I think we covered all of that. Let's see. We're ready to use it for. So yeah, that was it. That was one of my last slides that I had. Are there any questions from your end? I see something in the chat. Don't the high value VIPs have to wait endlessly if the preferred agent is occupied? Yeah, so that is indeed the case. If you use preferred agent routing and you say, I want it to only be delivered to the preferred agents, if you choose that other option, so the next best agent is also okay, then we'll try to route it to the preferred ones first. And if they are not available, it will just go through the regular routing rules, the regular rule set, and then will be delivered to the agent that has the best skills and the most availability and so on. Right? Great. Again, mind that unified routing is also using not just the settings here, the screen presence here. So if an agent is not available, you can't route to it, obviously. It also uses the service scheduling, the calendar, business closure, the holidays. It will use the specific resources. In this case, for example, I can have supervisor one that has different work hours than agent one, right? So even if the queue is open and the queue is uh, uh, um, we don't have a holiday and we have a queue and the agent is there, it could be that it's outside of the working hours of that specific agent, right? All of that will be taken into account. So all in all, pretty extensive routing capabilities. Andres said, does it also cover email? Yes. So if you go to routing, nope, there is a manage unified routing. And as I said, it is chat, voice, and cases. Those are automatically always unified routing. If you also want, sorry, I said chat and voice are always unified routing. Cases and emails are not. If you manage this and you turn on unified routing right here, it will use this for case and email as well. Again, if you use this, this is something that works one way. All of your basic skills, all of your basic routing rule sets, the basic queues, let me go to queues. So there's advanced queues and there's basic queues. The advanced queues is the unified routing queues. These are the old-fashioned ones. If you enable unified routing, all of these will fail. They will not work anymore unless you put intake rules into them, right? So mind that, oh, this is an advanced one. I was going to say there's no intake rules in there. I don't have basic ones, I think. I just have advanced ones. So mind that you do have to set that then, right? But then it covers cases and emails as well. So that is really nice because that is what we want. I mean, unified routing is absolutely great. Perfect. Any other questions? No? Well, then we're done a little bit earlier than expected. That is absolutely fine. Oh, Olaf is saying, how do we detect or extract the skills for incoming calls? That is a good one. I showed you that before, but we can in the last session, but I can absolutely show you again. We got some time left. So, for example, if I go to my IVR, right? So in this case, I got those queues, I got those work streams. On one of the work streams, I said I want to have a IVR bot, which is basically my IVR menu. If I click on that, I will be redirected to Copilot Studio, where there's a chat bot or there's an IVR menu, right? Let's go in here. Takes a little while to load up. Somewhat slow today. I don't know what it is, but so we got the IVR menu. Underneath topics, you'll see main menu there as your IVR. What can I help you with today? I can get all of these questions that I have in here on the chatbot or my IVR, and I can save them as a variable. Those variables, if you click them, you want them to be global topics. So if they are global, they will be available in your work stream. So add them to global, save it on. For this saves. Also, oh, there we go. Also, make sure that you publish it, right? And I can go I can go and do all of these things, right? I can have many variables that I set. I can have, for example, ask for your credit card number or your account number or your client ID or something like that. And I can check all of that in here. I can go and do Power Automate rules to actually get data from Dataverse and see what kind of a level do you have based on the phone number that you call into it, right? So once I transfer this whole conversation to Dynamics, to my unified routing, it will come in to my specific work stream, right? And in my specific work stream, for example, this one, there is advanced settings. And in advanced settings, I can add context variables. So the context variables, in this case, I want to say I got a context variable called menu option, right? That is the context value that I added here. Mind that you do not put global dot in front of it. It's just the name of it. Global is because it's a global variable. That is not what we put in here. Now that it's in here, Dynamics workstreams will receive this and map it to a context variable. Based on this, I can actually say, I want this to be in my routing rules. I want to create a rule. And I want to say if I choose a related entity, because this is part of the conversation, I want the field menu option, and here we go. It automatically finds that because it's a context variable. If that is part of billing, right, then I want them to be sent to the contact center voice queue instead of my premium banking. And this is now I do I'm doing this in the routing thing. Your question was literally, how can we extract skills from this? That is basically the same thing. So I can use it for routing. I have to put in a name. Well, let's skip that. I can do it for routing. I can also do the same thing on the classification one, right? So on the classification one, it takes a little expected. I have the same fields to my availability. I can have the context value, and I chose this is one context value because I chose another work stream. But say that would be menu item. If that is billing, I say that the skill would be, well, for example, or legal. I would say I want this legal to be one of the skills that it tries and finds in that agent pool, right? So enriching that not only goes through the IVR, you can also use that to with Power Automate to get way more data. I can also extend it with AI models in Azure AI Studio, machine learning models to go with that. So it's really extensive. It's really nice. Does that answer your question? That also.
Yes, absolutely. Thanks.
Perfect. And with that, then let's conclude. I hope you learned a little bit. This was the last one in our series. Again, I will put the slides in the chat, and I will update the link to the playlist where all of the other series, all of the other episodes are in there as well. Again, if you have any issues, if you want to know more, if you want to set up a demo, please do come and find me. Hit me up on Teams. I'll gladly let you lend my environment to test it out. I got a fully licensed one. If you want a 30 days one, right, that is really easy to set up on the trials.dynamics.com. Oh, type it right. Right, trials.dynamics.com. If you want to set it up, try free, right? Mine is in Dutch now, but try free. And then underneath service, you will find the customer service one. You can set this up really easily. It's a 30-day trial, fully provisioned. It comes with a phone number and 16 minutes of calling without any cost, without having you put your credit card in. So if you want to get started on it, please do. You can break everything there. Don't do it in your production environment. Okay. Thanks all, and see you guys later.
Thanks, Peter.